If you're hearing this, you weren't supposed to. I shouldn't even be alive to tell it. And if what I saw is true, I might not be alive by the time you finish listening. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? We love pressing play on things we know we shouldn't. Curiosity has a way of killing more than just cats. I'll make this quick enough. You've heard of cursed movies, creepy games, haunted websites. Everybody rolls their eyes, tells themselves it's just an internet campfire story. I used to think the same, but what I stumbled across one night wasn't a story, it wasn't a prank, and it wasn't anything you can just click away from. It was a show. A streaming show. Except it didn't belong to Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, none of that. It belonged to, well, that's the problem. I don't know who it belonged to. I just know what it wanted. And here's the part you won't believe until it's too late. This show only plays for the dead. Now, I know what you're thinking. If that's true, then how the hell am I here, talking to you? Believe me, I've been asking myself the same thing every night since. Maybe I wasn't supposed to see it. Maybe I slipped in through a crack I was never meant to find. Or maybe, and this is the part that keeps me awake at night, I'm already dead, and I just haven't figured it out yet. It all started on a night so normal it almost makes me laugh. 2 a.m, wide awake, scrolling through the same cycle of boredom. YouTube, Reddit, autoplay trash shows in the background. You know how it is, you're tired but not tired enough, restless but not productive. That night was nothing special, until it was. One wrong click, or maybe one right click, and suddenly I wasn't staring at another mindless sitcom rerun. I was staring at something I should never have seen. It wasn't just a random stream. No, this was something hidden, buried, like it was waiting for me specifically. No title, no description, just a black screen with a single word in red. Play. And here's where I should have stopped. Closed the tab. Turned off the laptop. Gone to bed like a normal person. But I didn't. Because that's not what we do, is it? We dig. We chase. We tell ourselves we're smarter than the people in the stories. That's the mistake. That's the reason I'm here, warning you by the time you finish this story, you'll know if you're next. Because the show isn't just content, it's a door. And once it knows you're watching, it doesn't stop. It doesn't forget you. It follows, so I'll tell you everything. Every impossible detail, every moment where my reality slipped into something else, every rule I learned too late. But don't mistake this for entertainment. This isn't a creepypasta or some Reddit or no-sleep post. This is a confession, and by the time I'm done, you'll understand why pressing play was the worst decision of my life, and why you should pray you never see it. The night it happened wasn't supposed to be special. It was just another one of those restless nights where sleep felt like some exclusive club I'd been blacklisted from. My clock had already rolled past 2 a.m., and I was still wide awake, sunk into the glow of my laptop screen. I had Netflix open on one tab, YouTube autoplay on another, Reddit in the background cycling through them like a man pacing the same 3 rooms in his apartment, hoping one might feel different the 5th time around. It wasn't that I had anything important keeping me awake. No exams, no deadlines. Just that hollow insomnia that creeps in for no reason and leaves you chasing the stupidest distractions. Half the time I let those streaming platforms babysit me into unconsciousness. Half the time they failed. That night, I remember Netflix trying to feed me another factory-made series. Quirky 20-somethings in New York, pretending their apartment rent isn't 10 grand a month. I'd seen that show already. I'd seen 1,000 versions of it. I couldn't even laugh at the laugh track anymore. It felt like the machine was mocking me for still being awake. YouTube wasn't much better. The algorithm had me cornered, with reaction videos, tier lists, and thumbnails screaming in all caps about the ending explained. It's amazing how much noise people will produce when they've got nothing to say. Cynical, yeah, but you get that way after you've clicked through enough garbage at 3 in the morning. That's why when something different popped up, I clicked it without hesitation. At first, I thought it was just another obscure channel buried in the algorithm. But the thumbnail looked wrong. Not horror movie wrong, not clickbait gore wrong. Wrong in the way a face looks when it's slightly asymmetrical, or when you swear you recognize someone but can't remember from where. The thumbnail was mostly static gray and fuzzy, like an old VHS tape on pause. Every few seconds it flickered. For just a breath I thought I saw something underneath, the corner of a room, a hand, maybe even a face. But it disappeared too quickly, like it was hiding from me. No title, no description, no uploaded by. Nothing. Just a black rectangle with a single word floating in the middle. Play. I stared at it for a long time, longer than I'd like to admit. My first thought was that it was some viral marketing stunt, some guerrilla campaign designed to get idiots like me curious. But the longer I stared, the less it felt like marketing, and the more it felt personal. Like the site itself wanted me to see this. Like it had reached through the algorithm, past all the trash content, to drop this right in my lap. That was when I noticed the chat box. At first, I thought it was empty, just that lonely blinking cursor in the corner. But then I realized there were usernames. Not many, just a handful. No messages, no conversation. Just silent, waiting names, and the names weren't normal. They weren't the usual mix of numbers, emojis, and gamer tags. These names looked like dates. Some were written out, July 19th, 1978. Others were just numbers, like March 14th, 2005. A few were stranger still, words like coroner's note or room 6. It was subtle enough that I almost shrugged it off as edgy usernames, but one of them stuck out. It sat there in the list like it was waiting for me to notice, and when I did, my stomach dropped. I'm not going to tell you which name it was. Not yet. You wouldn't believe me if I did, and besides, if I say it out loud, it feels like acknowledging. It makes it more real. Just know this, it wasn't a stranger. I should have clicked away. I should have closed the laptop, walked into the kitchen, and made myself some goddamn tea. Instead, I sat there, paralyzed, cursor hovering over that word .play. And that's when I felt it. Not paranoia, not nerves. Something worse. It felt like the site was watching me back. I could almost hear it breathing through the speakers, feel it humming through the glow of the screen. And in that moment, I wasn't just some insomniac killing time on the internet. I was a participant. Something had chosen me. I know how this sounds. Believe me, if someone else were telling me this story, I'd laugh them out of the room. but you'll see soon enough. I hesitated for maybe half a second more. Then, against every ounce of common sense I had left, I clicked play. The screen went black for a moment as if it were buffering, and I thought, really? All that build-up for a dead link? But then the video flickered to life, and I realized dead links don't usually make your stomach knot up like that. At first glance, it looked like the cheapest thing I'd ever seen. Imagine a local access show from the 90s, the kind that played at 2 a.m. when no one was watching. Grainy quality, washed-out colors, a static hum under everything. The set looked like a room, but not a real one. More like a stage version of a room with walls that were too flat. 2 empty dots, and then came the cast. 3 figures stood in the room, motionless. They didn't introduce themselves. They didn't move. They didn't even blink. They just stared into the camera, as if the show wasn't for anyone but me. Their faces were pale, washed into anonymity by the poor lighting. The more I stared, the more it felt like their expressions were shifting, 1 second neutral, the next almost smiling, then back again, like I had imagined it. It was absurd. I actually laughed out loud. This is what I lost sleep for? Someone's badly coded ARG? I muttered, half to myself. It reminded me of those cursed videos people upload just to freak out Reddit threads, but the laughter didn't last long, because when the camera panned, I saw the background dot. At first, it was just a chair, then a table, then the wallpaper, and slowly, piece by piece, it started to click. The room wasn't just some generic set. It looked almost exactly like my apartment. Same narrow table pushed against the wall. Same peeling wallpaper near the floorboards. Even the lamp crooked at the base looked familiar. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, leaned closer to the screen. No way, I whispered. I told myself it was coincidence. Generic furniture, a common floor plan, cheap design choices. But I couldn't shake the weight in my chest. The figures still hadn't moved. Their silence pressed against me like static through the speakers. Every so often the screen fuzzed, like the feed was slipping. And each time it fuzzed, their faces looked sharper, clearer. Too clear. I grabbed my phone and messaged my friend Ryan, because if I didn't share this weirdness with someone, I was going to lose my mind. Me, dude you up? Ryan, barely, why? Me, I found this super creepy stream. It looks like my apartment, Ryan. Lol. You're watching your own haunting me. No, seriously. Come look. I snapped a picture of the screen and sent it to him. While I waited for a reply, I glanced back at the video dot. The figures were gone. I froze. The screen still showed the room, but the 3 people had vanished without a trace. The camera angle hadn't moved. There were no cuts, no transitions. They had just disappeared. My phone buzzed. Ryan. The Mao, that's creepy. Probably some RAG. Relax, I wanted to agree. God, I wanted it to just be an ARG. But when I looked back at the screen, my stomach dropped. The camera had zoomed in, slowly, silently, onto the table in the middle of the room. And on that table sat my coffee mug. Not just a mug, my mug. A chipped black ceramic one with a spiderweb crack across the handle. I glanced to my own table and saw it sitting there, right where I'd left it. The laugh caught in my throat. This wasn't funny anymore. I messaged Ryan again, fingers shaking. Me. No, dude. It's showing my stuff. my mug, my wallpaper. Ryan, okay. Now you're creeping me out. Send me the link. I tried. I copied the URL, but when I pasted it into the message box, it showed up blank. I tried again. Same thing. No link, no preview. Just empty space, like the site didn't want to be shared. My phone buzzed again. Ryan, your message didn't come through. Before I could respond, I noticed movement on the screen. The figures were back, this time closer, too close. Their faces filled the screen, grainy but unmistakably watching. Their eyes looked black in the dim light, and for a moment I swore one of them blinked in slow motion, like they were mocking me. I scrambled for an explanation. Bad deep fake? Someone spoofing my webcam feed? But my webcam light wasn't on. Besides, the angles didn't match. That was when I noticed the chat. The list of usernames was changing. Slowly at first, then all at once. One by one, the names shifted into something else. And then, the chat box lit up. A single line of text appeared, breaking the silence. We see you. I swear my blood turned to ice. My hand hovered over the keyboard, ready to slam the tab shut. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I whispered to myself, this isn't real. It can't be real. But deep down, I knew it was. I should have listened then. When the chat finally spoke, that was my chance to walk away, to save myself. But I didn't. I told myself I was still in control. I told myself I could pause, could stop whenever I wanted. So I hit pause. And that's when I realized the show wasn't listening to me. Because the video didn't stop. It kept playing. The pause button was useless. I pressed it once, twice, a dozen times until the little icon flickered like it was mocking me. But the show kept rolling, grainy and relentless. That was when the chat box lit up again. At first, it was just a trickle, a single username, then another. But within seconds, the whole sidebar was filling like someone had opened a floodgate. Hundreds of names scrolled by in silence. No words, no emojis, just names. And they weren't usernames the way we think of them. No silly numbers, no XX_killer420_XX. These looked like real names, names with middle initials, names with dates, names that carried weight. I clicked one out of curiosity. Daniel R. McCarthy, 1963 to 2018. Something about it itched at me, so I opened a new tab and Googled it. The very first result, an obituary in a small-town newspaper. Same name, same years, same everything. I slammed the laptop shut out of instinct. My heart pounded so hard it rattled my ribs. But after a moment of silence, I lifted the lid again. The stream was still there, still playing, as if I had never left, and the names kept coming. I tested it again with another one. Maya Chun, 1990 to 2015. Same result. An obituary. This time with a picture, smiling, too alive to belong in that scrolling graveyard of a chat. The messages began to appear then. Short, fragmented, like broken signals clawing their way through static. Help.cold. Join us. Stay. Each word hit like a hammer. The letters appeared jagged, uneven, as though written by trembling hands. Then one name appeared that froze me completely. Emily Vargas, 1997 to 2019. Emily. We went to school together. I hadn't thought of her in years, but I remembered the car accident. I remembered the memorial posts on Facebook. There was no mistaking it. Her name wasn't coincidence. It wasn't random. It was her dot. My chest went tight. I typed into the chat box without even thinking, "Emily?" For a long moment, nothing happened. The scrolling slowed, usernames flickering and dissolving into the void. Then one single line appeared. "We've been waiting for you." I slammed my chair back, knocking it against the wall. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and dialed Ryan. He answered on the third ring, groggy. "Dude, it's 3 a.m. What the hell?" "It's not a joke, Ryan. The chat, these names, they're real. They're all dead people." "What?" He laughed nervously. "Okay, you're scaring me now. Is this some weird creepypasta thing? You've been writing too much horror again." "I'm serious. Emily Vargas, do you remember her?" "She's in the chat. Her name, her dates. She died in 2019. And the chat responded to me. It said it's been waiting for me." There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then he sighed. "Bro, listen. It's probably some messed up RG pulling obituaries from the web. People code this kind of stuff for attention. It's not an ARG," I shouted, voice cracking. It knew my mug. It knew my apartment. Now it knows me. "Calm down, man. Look, share the link again. Let me check it out." "Maybe I can." The line crackled. Static hissed in my ear. "Ryan?" I pulled the phone back, checked the screen. The call was still connected, timer running, but his voice was gone. Just static. "Ryan, can you hear me?" Then the static cut out, replaced by something faint, a whisper. I pressed the phone to my ear, straining. It wasn't Ryan. It wasn't even one voice. It was hundreds, layered over each other, whispering the same phrase in broken unison. "Join US, join use, join use." I ripped the phone away and ended the call, heart slamming in my chest. My hand was trembling so badly I almost dropped it. When I looked back at the screen, the figures in the show had returned. They were closer now, gathered around the table like mourners at a wake. Their pale faces flickered in and out with each burst of static. The chat scrolled faster than my eyes could follow, but every line of it seemed aimed at me. "Stay. Don't leave. We see you." I bolted from my desk, desperate to shut it all down. I yanked the laptop cord from the wall, held down the power button, until the screen went black. The relief lasted maybe 2 seconds. Then my phone buzzed. A notification. Live stream continuing. I unlocked the phone with shaking fingers. The app wasn't one I'd ever downloaded. The same grainy video played, shrunk to the size of my palm. The figures were still there. The chat was still flowing. I dropped the phone onto the couch like it had burned me. My TV, dark and unplugged, flickered to life on its own. Static, then the stream, then the chat. Every screen in the room was alive with it. Laptop, phone, TV. Even the old digital photo frame I hadn't touched in years glowed faintly, showing the same pale faces. There was no escape, no device safe. I staggered back against the wall, breathing like a hunted animal. For a moment, all I could do was watch, helpless. The chat filled every surface with the same repeating words. "Join US, join use." I clenched my fists, forcing air into my lungs. No, I whispered to myself, shaking. No, I'm not part of this. I won't be. But deep down, even as I said it, I knew the truth. I was already part of it. I started keeping notes. Not because I thought it would save me, but because I was terrified that I'd forget what was real and what belonged to the stream. When you're the only living audience member in a show made for the dead, documentation becomes a kind of anchor. Here's what I learned. The show doesn't run like anything else online. There's no schedule posted, no algorithm to explain it, no file location that my computer could find. It just appears. And always at the same time. 3:33 a.m., not 3:32, not 3:34. Every night. Like clockwork. And once you've clicked play, once God help you, it remembers. It remembers you the way a scar remembers the blade. No matter where I logged in, no matter what device I tried, the stream didn't reset. It always picked up exactly where I'd left off, like I was binging my own personal nightmare on demand. Except I hadn't subscribed, and I couldn't cancel. I started testing it. My phone, my laptop, my work computer. It didn't matter. The stream followed. No URL, no app. Just a window opening on its own, daring me to keep watching. The audience, as far as I can tell, isn't meant for us. The usernames, the messages, they belong to people who've already died. That much I'm sure of. I Googled dozens. Car accidents, overdoses, suicides, murders. Their digital ghosts sit in the chat room, frozen in the moment of their final breaths, desperate to type out warnings or pleas that never make sense. Join US. Stay tuned. Don't stop. And then there's me, the living exception. The glitch in the feed. I don't know why I was invited. Or cursed. Maybe I stumbled onto something that wasn't meant for me. Or maybe I was always meant to find it. Here's where it gets worse. The show isn't static, it grows. Every night, more detail bleeds in. The sets get sharper, more specific. Sometimes I catch flashes of places I've been. My old high school hallway, the gas station where I used to buy coffee. Once even the cracked paint on my parents' living room wall. As if the show is pulling scenery from my own memory, stitching it into the broadcast. And the actors, or whatever they are, have become more confident. At first, they just stared. Now they move, but not like people. Their gestures are off, too slow, too exact, and always angled toward the camera, as if I'm not just watching. Them as if I'm their scene partner. I told myself I was done. I told myself I'd just ignore it, let the stream run without me. But it doesn't work like that. The first night I tried, I woke up at exactly 3:33 a.m. My laptop screen was glowing. The show was paused. Waiting. That's when I knew this wasn't just entertainment. It was an invitation, and maybe some of you know what I'm talking about. Maybe that's why you clicked on this story in the first place. Maybe you've seen the stream yourself, tucked between autoplay videos, just another thumbnail in an endless scroll. Or maybe you saw the chat room, empty except for a single name that made your stomach turn because you knew it. If you haven't seen it yet, don't look for it, please. This isn't curiosity you want to satisfy. The show finds you, not the other. Way around . And yet I can't stop. That's the truth I hate admitting. I should close every device, unplug everything, smash the screens with a hammer if I have to. But at 3:33, I'm always awake, always reaching for the glow, because some part of me needs to know how far it goes. What the final episode is, I think there are rules to this thing. I just haven't learned them all yet. But so far, it only airs at 3:33 a.m. Once you've watched, you can't escape it. The audience is the dead, except for me. Except maybe for you. There's something else I pieced together, something darker, but I'm not ready to share it yet. Not now. You wouldn't believe me anyway. Let's just say there's a way to escape, but it's worse than staying. And yes, I'll tell you. Just not yet. The hardest part isn't the show itself. It's the daytime. The end dash between dot at work. I sit through meetings while people laugh about their favorite Netflix specials or complain about reboots. Someone brought up that reality show where strangers live together in a house. The producers know everything about them, one guy said, chuckling. It's creepy how much they script it. I wanted to scream. They don't know creepy. Creepy isn't a camera in your living room. Creepy is a show that doesn't just script your life, it predicts it. I caught myself staring at the reflection in my office monitor, half expecting to see one of the actors over my shoulder. Every phone ring made my chest tighten. Every casual joke felt like static from the feed. I'm not sure where the show ends and where my life begins anymore. And yet, tonight I know I'll watch again, because the worst truth of all is this. The more I watch, the more it feels like I'm supposed to. And I think tomorrow night, something new is waiting. I told myself I was done. I wasn't going to click again. But when 3:33 rolled around the next night, my laptop screen just lit up. It was off, completely shut down. No power indicator, no hum from the fan, yet there. It was glowing faintly, as if something inside had decided it didn't need my permission anymore. Dot and on the screen. The show, already playing. The production looked the same, at first grainy, cheap, like someone had dragged a VHS camera out of a basement and filmed with the lens cracked. The colors bled, and the sound buzzed like a swarm of insects trapped behind the glass. But this time, the faces were different. Dot. At first, I thought I was imagining it. The characters still silent, still staring through the screen, as though trying to climb out, weren't strangers anymore. They were familiar. Too familiar. The man sitting in the kitchen chair, hunched forward with his hands folded, looked like my old history teacher. The woman at the counter, chopping vegetables that weren't really there, had my mother's eyes except a little too wide, too unblinking. And the child sitting cross-legged on the floor, it was my childhood best friend, Tyler. Same haircut, same nervous twitch of the hands. Except Tyler had died when we were 12. I froze. My laugh, forced, sharp, cutting through the silence of my apartment, was the only thing keeping me tethered to sanity. Great, I muttered. The show is recycling my Facebook photos now. Creepy little RG stunt. But no matter how hard I tried to rationalize, the setting left me nowhere to run. Dot. It wasn't some cheap set anymore. It was my childhood home. The warped floral wallpaper, the yellowed linoleum in the kitchen, the ugly plaid couch my dad refused to throw away. It was all there, like someone had broken into my memories and rebuilt them in front of a camera. I leaned closer, almost unwillingly, squinting at the corners of the frame. The exact scuff on the hallway wall where I crashed my bike when I was 7. Even the crooked family photo with my dad's hand cut off at the edge. This wasn't a coincidence. This was mine. My house. My past. I backed away from the laptop, suddenly aware of every shadow in my apartment pressing against me. And then the show started moving. No dialogue. No sound, just the characters turning their heads, one by one, until they were all staring into the lens. At me. Their faces didn't twitch, didn't breathe, didn't blink. They just waited. I slammed the lid shut. But the buzzing didn't stop. The glow leaked out from the cracks like the screen itself was still alive beneath the plastic. I grabbed my phone. My hands shook so badly I could barely type, but I sent a message to Alex, one of the only people who hadn't laughed when I first mentioned the stream. It's happening again. It's my house this time. They look like people I know. The 3 dots appeared, paused, vanished. Then, dude, you need to chill. You're just binging too much horror. Next you'll say it predicted the future or some crap. I almost threw my phone across the room. No, I hissed out loud to know. 1. You don't get it. But the cruel part? Alex wasn't entirely wrong, because that night I realized the show wasn't just a reflection, it was a preview. The episode ended abruptly, mid-scene, cutting to black like someone had yanked the plug. No credits, no outro, just nothing. The next morning I tried to go about life as normal. Work, coffee, pretending my hands weren't trembling every time my screensaver flickered. But by noon I got the first taste of what the show had done. In the episode, I'd seen Alex sitting in my childhood kitchen, his mouth twisted in a grimace, his hands clawing at the table as though he were trying to hold on at lunch. I bumped into Alex near the vending machines at work. He looked pale. His hands trembled when he reached for his soda. Didn't sleep, he muttered. Bad dreams, like being somewhere I didn't belong. The exact image from the show. My stomach dropped. Guess spoilers aren't. Just for Netflix, I whispered under my breath, trying to hide the panic behind a smirk. What? Alex asked, confused. Nothing. But inside, the truth clawed at me. The show wasn't recording anymore. It wasn't replaying anything. It was rewriting. That night, I tried again to resist. I locked the laptop in a drawer, shoved it under my bed, and turned my phone off. But 3:33 doesn't care about your precautions, because when the clock blinked to that cursed time, the drawer creaked open on its own. I swear I heard the sound wood shifting, the faint scrape of metal against plastic. And when I reached under the bed, my hand met a glow before it touched the laptop. It was already playing. This time there was no house, no kitchen, no couch. Just Alex, sitting alone in a chair, his face pale, eyes wide, lips trembling. He tried to speak, his mouth moved, but the silence was absolute. I grabbed my phone and dialed his number. My heart beat so loud it felt like a second voice. Alex listened to me. Don't freak out, but his laugh was hollow on the other. And, bro, if this is another one of your horror setups, and then the line cut. Not a disconnect. Not static. Just gone. I stared at the phone, then back at the glowing screen. On the show, Alex's eyes lifted. Slowly, painfully, he looked into the lens, into me, with a kind of recognition that froze my blood. That's when I realized it wasn't Alex in the show. It was the show in Alex. And no matter how hard I swore, no matter how many times I told myself never again. I knew the truth. I'd watch again, because the show was watching me first. I swore I'd never watch again, but swearing means nothing to something that already owns your screen. I thought I could outsmart it. That was my first mistake. I pulled the plugs, every single one. Router, TV, laptop, even my phone. I sat in the dark like some lunatic hiding from a ghost in his own house. And for a moment, a long, shaky moment, I believed I'd done it. The silence was almost holy. No buzz of electronics, no glow of screens. Just me and the soft hum of my own breathing. But then the static started. At first it was faint, a distant hiss like wind curling under the door. I told myself it was my imagination, or maybe the blood rushing in my ears, until I turned my head and saw my TV, unplugged from the wall, its black screen glowing faint gray. Static swimming across the glass, writhing like maggots under a thin layer of skin. I staggered back. My brain screamed impossible, but my body knew better. My body knew I was already too late. This show didn't need my permission anymore. The first night after that, I dreamed in episodes. Not dreams in the normal sense. No random nonsense about flying or teeth falling out. These were structured segments, opening credits I'd never seen before, familiar music that didn't exist, faces I knew staring straight at me through the dream like the actors were waiting for my reaction. When I woke up, it wasn't relief I felt. It was recognition, as though my waking life was just another installment, a continuation of something bigger than me. Day bled into night without separation. Eating breakfast felt like watching a rerun. The way the spoon clinked the bowl, the way sunlight hit the counter, it was all déjà vu, scripted, rehearsed. I wasn't living. I was reciting lines I'd never been given. That's when I started searching. The forums weren't easy to find. Hidden corners of the internet, threads that looked abandoned at first glance. But dig deep enough and the cracks show. People whispering about the show. Most posts started with skepticism. Weird glitch, unlisted stream, probably an ARG. But the tone always shifted halfway through, like the author had seen something they couldn't laugh off anymore. And then abrupt silence. Posts cut off mid-sentence. Accounts inactive for years. It wasn't deletion. It was erasure, as though the person behind the words had been pulled out of their chair before they could finish typing. I read hundreds of them, each one worse than the last. Some described the same things I'd seen, the chat filled with names from obituaries, the episodes mimicking personal lives. Others mentioned details I hadn't encountered yet, rules, patterns, rituals to avoid being seen. Reading them felt like peeking at spoilers for my own fate. One post in particular still claws at my skull. It wasn't long. Just a few paragraphs buried deep in a forgotten thread. The username was a string of numbers that, when I searched, matched the date of a train derailment years ago. Victims 37. The writer's voice was frantic, fragmented, like they were typing too fast to think. They wrote about seeing their own funeral as an episode, about the audience clapping when the casket lid closed. They said the laughter never stopped, that it followed them even when they weren't watching. The last line was cut off, but not before they typed this. If you're reading this, then it already knows your name. The next time you close your eyes, You won't dream, you'll. And that was it. Nothing after you'll. No edits, no closure, just silence. I should have clicked away. I should have burned the whole computer. But I didn't. I reread that line again and again until the words didn't look like words anymore. They looked like bait, like a trap laid. Just for me, because the sick truth is, I recognized the writing style, the slang, the phrasing, the little quirks in punctuation. I'd seen it before in messages, texts, emails. Not from a stranger, from someone I knew, someone I'd buried 3 years ago. That was when the bottom fell out of my reality. I slammed the laptop shut and swore I'd never open it again. But when I turned around, the TV was already on. Static, pulsing like a heartbeat. I swear it. Whispered my name. I haven't slept since then, not really. I close my eyes and the episodes spool out behind them, crisp and endless. Every time I blink, I feel a cut in the reel, like I'm just an actor walking from one scene to the next. I don't know where I end, and the show begins anymore. And yet, here I am, still talking to you. Maybe you're shaking your head right now, telling yourself you'd never be dumb enough to click play. Maybe you're convincing yourself it's all just a story. That's what I told myself too. But stories don't follow you to bed. Stories don't watch you back through the screen. I said I'd share what I found, and I will. But I need you to understand, reading it isn't safe. That post I stumbled across, it didn't just describe the show, it carried it like a parasite. Words can spread it. That's why so many of those threads ended mid-sentence. They didn't stop typing. They were stopped. So if you're still here, if you're still listening, then you have a choice. I can repeat what was written, and you can carry the weight with me. Or you can leave now, while you still can, but something tells me you won't. Something tells me you've already decided, because that's how the show works. It doesn't need your consent. It just needs your attention, and you've already given it. I opened the last post, the one that had been buried in the forum for years, half erased, almost invisible. My hands shook so badly I could barely scroll, and then I read it, word by word, and the air in the room thickened like smoke. We are the dead. We are the audience. The show is how we remember the living. I froze. My stomach turned over. The post wasn't just a warning, it was a confession. A manual for the damned. The next lines twisted my mind further. Once you watch, you are never just a viewer. Once you look, you join the cast. And the cast remembers the living by performing what they do. I swallowed hard. I glanced at my laptop. The glow was already creeping back across the dark room. The figures, the actors, they weren't strangers. They weren't even ghosts in the conventional sense. They were me and anyone else who had ever clicked play, dragged into the loop. I leaned closer. My reflection in the black screen started to warp. My own face flickered, pixelated, stretched in the grainy static. My eyes were staring back from the corner of the frame, pale and wide, mimicking every twitch I made. I whispered, shaking, "No, it can't be me. Not yet." But deep down, I knew. Every time I blinked, every time I averted my gaze, the show was already there. It was recording, rewriting, making me part of it. And if I stopped, if I walked away, the cast would fill the space I left. Someone else would sit in my place in the next episode, carrying on the cycle. And that's when I realized my entire life, the mundane, the ordinary, the terrifying, was already material for someone else's viewing. I wasn't just living. I was rehearsing dots, so here I am, speaking to you. Maybe some of you have stumbled onto this after clicking a link, following a curiosity that shouldn't exist. Maybe some of you are already part of the audience, wondering if you'll be next. If I disappear after this upload, you'll know I joined the stream. You'll know the cast has claimed me. And I'll be somewhere on the other side of the static, performing for those who no longer live. I can feel it creeping closer now. The edges of the screen ripple like liquid glass. My face flickers once, twice. The figures are forming behind me, and every word I type stutters, breaks, as though the letters themselves are being rewritten mid-sentence. So remember this. If nothing else, once you watch, the stream remembers you. Once it sees you, it doesn't forget. And the price of watching is yourself. I should stop now. I should close the file, delete the footage, erase every trace of this video. But I can't, because once you've seen what I've seen, once you've heard what I've heard, it's already too late. So I'll leave you with this. A warning and a choice. Check your streaming apps at 3:33 tonight. Really look. Scroll past the recommended videos. Ignore the autoplay suggestions. Look for something unlisted. Something that shouldn't be there. If you see it, don't click play or do. I won't lie. It would be comforting to have someone join me. Someone awake, someone living, someone who knows what's coming. Because out there, beyond the glow of the screen, the audience waits, and the cast is always looking for company. Maybe that's why you're watching this right now. Maybe curiosity already brought you closer than you thought. Maybe by the time you blink, you'll be on the other side of the static, performing for those who are no longer here. And remember this. Once you watch, it remembers you. It doesn't matter if you're ready, if you're brave, if you think it's just a story. The moment you click, the show knows. So tonight at 3:33, the choice is yours. Play or don't. But either way, it's waiting, and it's hungry for new eyes. I could use the company, and with that,